Hello, welcome back to Buckle Up. My name's Jasper and this is the MX-5, the famous ragtop convertible. And today I'm going to tell you why I think this is a great little car. Let's start with styling at the front, which of course, this is the ND MX-5, meaning it was released back in around 2014-15, and very little has actually changed since then. But looking at this, you would not think that this car is a decade old, because it still looks so fresh. The front end is incredibly purposeful and these headlamps make it look like an angry cat. If I put these lights on, which I can do by unlocking the car, look at these aggressive light clusters. That's essentially one of the few things that has changed since 2014. You've now got LED clusters and LED running lights up here. Very sporty, very purposeful, and these strikes across the top of the light clusters do look absolutely lovely. You've got quite a nice low aggressive grille, very low front lip with your Mazda badge on it, and then this car in particular has this lovely dealer fit option on it in the form of this gloss black plastic trim that works its way around the entirety of the bottom of the car. And while I'm here, it's probably also worth mentioning that this car has been very kindly provided to us by SG Petch of Darlington. So if you are in the market for a Mazda, or in fact a number of other brands that SG Petch also sell, maybe give them a shout. Couple of other things at the front, as well as this actual grille here. You've got a couple of fake vents for styling purposes, and then you've got some absolutely gorgeous crease lines in this bonnet, which is quite long, and you can really see that when you look at the car from the side. While you're here, you can also see these 17-inch BBS alloy wheels, which are part of the Homura trim that this particular car is. If you do have the Homura trim, you get an additional strut brace under the bonnet, you get these BBS alloys, which are very nice, and these red Brembo brake calipers. The Homura also comes with Mazda's sports suspension with Bilstein dampers as standard, but this car has had the additional sports suspension option ticked, which actually lowers it by 25 to 30 millimeters and gives you an even more aggressive, sporty looking stance. Part of the Homura trim includes black door mirrors, and they tie in really nicely with your black windscreen surround, and this paint is aero grey. Other colours which offer a little bit more visual appeal are available. The main thing you notice at the side though are the classic roadster proportions. So your long, low bonnet, your little bubble of a cabin sitting vaguely in the centre but slightly offset towards the rear, and then of course your boot section. This is the manually operated soft top, but you can get this in a hard top variety, which Harry and Rob have already driven. Around at the back you can see more of the gloss black plastic trim, which does look very good. You've got numerous badges, you've got the Mazda emblem, you've got Skyactiv G telling you that this has the Skyactiv G engine, and you've got of course your MX-5 model designation. The back end does also look very nice and sporty, and that is helped by your twin exit stainless steel exhaust pipe. You've got parking sensors and a reversing camera. Don't be fooled into thinking this is the rear boot release, that is just your camera. The rear boot release is both a button on the key fob, which is probably the better one to use, but you do have a button down here, but your fingers will get grubby when you press it. If I pop open this little boot lid, you are greeted by a traditionally roadster sized boot. It's quite deep, but the opening is very small. The space here is 130 litres, which is, it turns out, big enough for one Jasper, but it's not the most practical boot. But then again, in this kind of car, you're not really getting a load of practicality. There's definitely enough space to take enough stuff with you for a weekend away, as long as you've packed soft bags. Suitcases and this kind of boot are not the best idea. And you've got a few different tie down points and clips and straps in here, but no distinct kind of hooks, no cubbies, no carrier bag hooks or anything like that. The only thing at the back of the car that really dates it is this antenna, which has been the same since it was released in 2014. And even back then, this would have been a little bit outdated as well. I do really like these light clusters, which are full LED, and actually you'll see this design theme inside. So let's go and have a look. So I am now inside the MX-5, and as the resident short person on Buckle Up, this cabin is the right size for me, but if you're taller than I am, you start kind of running out of space in here. So this seat does go a reasonable distance back, but if you are kind of 6 feet tall or about 182 centimeters, you're verging on the limits of actually being able to fit in this cabin. So where my head is actually quite close to the roof line, and if the roof is up, I have to fold myself in and out of the door frame. So if you are quite tall, definitely go and sit in and test drive one of these before making the decision to buy, because you want to make sure you're going to be comfortable. Now, that being said, when you're in here and you get yourself comfortable, it is a great driver's cabin. The steering wheel sits perfectly in front of you and has plenty of adjustability for both reach and rake. And you can adjust the angle of the base of the driver's seat. However, you can't adjust the height of the seat. Backrest is on a ratchet type mechanism, so you can adjust things as you need to, and it's a very driver focused cabin. You've got a traditional dashboard clock setup in front of you with traditional analog dials and a small digital screen on the left hand side. You've got this small, very letterbox style infotainment screen up on the center of the dashboard. That is touchscreen, but it also isn't touchscreen, because you can only use the touchscreen functionality in very specific circumstances, i.e. when you are using Apple CarPlay or Android Auto and stationary. In any other circumstances, you have to use this rotary controller down here, which I do think is kind of safer, because you can enter your sat-nav destination whilst you're stationary, and then when you're on the move, if you need to change something or pause something, you've got the controller down here rather than trying to jab at a screen whilst driving. Just below that screen, you'll see the design language from the lights at the rear in the shape of this rotary air vent and slim letterbox style air vent. That's the same shape you've got back there. Another air vent over here next to the steering wheel. The heater in this is excellent, which is a very good thing, because when it's a convertible, it needs a good heater. And Mazda do a very sensible thing, which is they give you proper physical climate controls. It's got full automatic climate control, but it's so easy to adjust where your airflow is, where your temperature is, and things like your fan speed if you want to do that. Really nice tactile functionality there. Well done, Mazda. Both of these seats have 3-stage heated seating, and then below that you've got a pair of USB Type-C ports for your infotainment screen. However, wireless Apple CarPlay and Android Auto are fitted. There's a nice little cubby for your phone just below that, and you can coil your cable up if you're charging down here. Back here we've got a manual gearbox, more on that in a bit, and a chunky handbrake. Rotary controller for the infotainment screen with some shortcut buttons back here, and a rotary volume knob. Behind that, a small cubby in the center console. This is very, very small. You're not really going to get much in there, but it does have 2 small coin holders in it, which is a rare occurrence nowadays. There's no glove box, but you do have a small cubby behind you in between the seats. This is lockable, and it's got your toolkit and owner's manual, so this is essentially your glove box. Above that, you've got the release for the soft top, so that clips back into place, and if you pop that, it lifts and you can hoik it over your head and clip it in place above the sun visor. And then you do have some little storage cubbies behind both of these seats. These are Recaro seats, and these sport seats are part of the Homura pack, and they are really, really comfortable. And you've got Bose speakers built into the headrests. The sound system in here is actually very impressive for this kind of car. Between the seats, you've got a pair of cup holders, and something that's great about the MX-5 is you can reconfigure where the cup holders sit. So I can move this passenger one and pop it down here in the footwell, which means that my reusable bottle of water can sit nicely there in a much easier place to reach than kind of like double jointing your elbow and faffing about to try and grab it from back here. So that is a really good feature. You've got a wind deflector that's quite small behind the two seats, and this frameless rear view mirror is auto dimming. You've got reasonably large door mirrors, but they do not dim. And then your door card has no pocket for storage in it. There is not much in this cabin, but you do have electronic window controls and your electric mirror controls in the door here. Your passenger seat does have ISOFIX points on it, so not all practicality is lost upon the MX-5. You can fit a single child seat, but what you really care about with the MX-5 is how it drives. So let's go and do that. Okay, so firstly, I know I'm committing a cardinal sin by driving a convertible with the windows up but the roof down, but for the sake of audio reasons, I kind of need to do that. But that's enough. Let's talk about driving the ND MX-5, because realistically, that's why you're going to buy one of these. The Homura spec only comes with Mazda's 2-litre Skyactiv G engine available. It's a normally aspirated engine, 4 cylinders, inline, rear-wheel drive, and it revs to 7,500 RPM. Now, 184 PS and 205 Newton meters of torque are not actually that healthy when it comes to power output, but given how light the car is and the fact that you can rev it all the way to 7,500 RPM, you can actually get from 0 to 62 miles an hour in 6.5 seconds, which for something that's just rear-wheel drive and this small, feels about right. The real fun when it comes to driving an MX-5 though comes from being able to carry a lot of speed through twisty corners, and the fact that you've got such a good suspension setup and such a darling little chassis really means that you can carry that speed and have the fun you're after. The other reason the MX-5 is just so fun as well is this manual gearbox. Hands down, this is the best manual gearbox I've driven. It's so short throw, it latches into gear absolutely beautifully, and it's such a rewarding, engaging gearbox to just row through. The ratios are beautifully closely matched and you can row through it really quickly, but because it's got 6 speeds, when you're in 6th at 60 miles an hour, you're doing 2,300 RPM, so the engine isn't working too hard. That, and the fact this is so lightweight, goes a long way to explaining the fact that WLTP, you can get over 40 miles to the gallon in this car, which is pretty impressive. When it comes to pressing on, the MX-5 really does reward you. The steering feel is excellent, the chassis balance is perfect, you can really feel everything that the car's doing, and the fact that you've got such a playful back end means that you really can have fun. The car has this beautiful little amount of roll and skitter in it that just means that you can have so much fun in normal driving circumstances. The other thing that the Homura brings you is an asymmetric limited slip differential, which means that the car offers you just a little bit of give before rescuing you with the traction control. If you do get the top trim, there's also a race mode for the traction control, which means you can have a lot more movement in the back end before anything steps in to save you. The interior is great, it's very comfortable, you've got just about everything you'd need. The only thing I'd want if I had one of these is a heated steering wheel, but the heater itself is very good and you can angle these 2 vents to be pointing directly at your hands, so it's not the end of the world. The car feels really planted on the road, it's very comfortable, and despite that lowered sport suspension, it handles British country roads so well. It also has a reasonable amount when it comes to features. So I've got cruise control with an auto steer function. There's no adaptive cruise control available in this, but realistically, do you need it in a Roadster? I'd argue not. The steering wheel controls are all really nice and tactile. You've got audio controls on the left-hand side and then your cruise control functionality on the right-hand side. The screen in the centre is dead easy to use, and this rotary controller down here makes it a breeze to choose between options on Apple CarPlay or Android Auto or the built-in Mazda menu system. Mazda know their customers so well because they give you things like the manual controls for your climate control. You've got the analog dials, but you've got the digital element in terms of the infotainment screen and the safety systems that look after you. I've got blind spot monitoring on this, which actually for something that's quite small and so low is very beneficial. Everything about the driving experience of the MX-5 just allows you to feel things, whether that's emotion of driving or the connected elements you get with such a good manual gearbox, such a great feeling through the pedals and such an amazing feeling through the steering wheel. It's a very emotive car to drive this, and you can see why so many people buy these if they're keen drivers. The reason is they're just excellent fun to drive. I think it goes without saying that I really like how this car drives, and when you pair that amazing driving experience with just how good it looks, how fresh the styling is, and the fact that it's been brought nicely up to date with certain elements in the interior, it's a really easy recommendation if you're a keen driver. So, the MX-5, in conclusion, it looks great, it drives really well, the engine and technology you get are brilliant, it's not particularly expensive, so what else can you ask for when it comes to a two-seater roadster? There's a reason this car sells so well and continues to do so. It's brilliant. Do you agree with my take on the MX-5? If you do, let me know in the comments below. If you don't, let me know in the comments below. While you're down there, please have a look at the video description. You can follow us in one or all of our social medias, which are linked there, as well as a couple of other ways you can support the channel. Firstly, our spread shop. You can buy some merchandise with a Buckle Up logo on it. Secondly, channel memberships directly here on YouTube, or, please do at least follow us on social media. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much as well to SG Petch for lending us this car. Please do go and check them out if you'd like to buy a Mazda or one of the other brands they also sell. That is everything for today's video, so I will see you in the next one. Bye!